Welcome to the Create Your Kind Space podcast with me, your host, Caroline Lawrenson. Create Your Kind Space is about well-being and the different ways in which we care for ourselves and those around us. We're here to offer companionship and practical tips to brighten your day. We'll delve into the concept of kind spaces, chatting with an inspiring mix of people from across tech, wellness and entrepreneurship. Let's learn together and sprinkle some much needed kindness in the world. So take a pause, relax, and let's start the journey. So here's a funny story for you. When I was at school, the big rumour that went round was that I had a record contract. I have literally no idea where this came from. However, if it had have been true, it really would have been a dream come true. Singing has always been a big part of me, but sensible Caroline decided to become an engineer as this seemed like a more reliable way to make a living. My guest today has not only devoted her career to music, but made the leap into entrepreneurship to create a digital platform that allows others to harness the benefits of singing. Awesome. Okay, so super excited because today I have with me my lovely friend Xann, who's joining me all the way from America. One of the reasons why I'm really excited is singing is one of the most massive parts of my life. There is nothing that I love more than singing, and you've created this amazing platform to bring people together with the power of our voices, and I think it's just genius. So I really wanted to share with people some of the reasons why I love it so much, and we can delve into some of the aspects of that a bit more in the discussion, and also find out a bit more about you and how you kind of came to be where you are today. So yeah, listeners, let's dive in and meet Xann. So to kick us off, would you be able to tell people a little bit more about your background, about what you trained in, and kind of how you've ended up as a tech founder?
It's a bit of a weird one, that story, isn't it always? So I'm Xann. I run a platform called Biiah, which is a platform improving employee productivity through music. We'll get into how we do that in a little bit more about my background. I've been making music ever since I was a little kid. I studied music business for my undergraduate degree, and then I did my master's in choral conducting, of all things. I've always been really moved by how music made me feel and people around me feel, and the togetherness. Some of my closest friends in the world, I met singing with them in some form or other. And so I remember when I was nearing graduation for undergrad, and what everybody around me kind of knew what they wanted to do, and I still had no idea. I thought, well, I should start with my passion because that can't lead me astray. At least I'll be enjoying my time. And so I went and I did my master's straight after uni. And when I was doing my graduate degree, I just felt compelled to utilize, this is back in 2012, to utilize the opportunity that technology and digital media present for accessibility. Now, my specialty is 16th century polyphony, which is like super, super, super niche. And for obvious reasons was struggling to adapt or really feeling like it didn't need to adapt to the 21st century, which obviously for me felt like there's such a profound opportunity to create an accessibility portal to this thing that had moved me, that had healed me, that had, been a vehicle for my emotions for all of my upbringing into adulthood. And so that's really where I started in my tech career. I didn't know anything about tech. I just saw it around me and felt like there's opportunity here. And I just want everybody to feel the way that I feel and like be moved by this thing. And I saw it moving people around me who were really struggling, whether, uni can be really hard, social pressures, career pressures, productivity pressures, being in England where it's gray all the time, all winter long, like there are lots of contributors, right, to whether it be poor mental health or productivity or lack of motivation, the pressure of having to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life, study it and make a career out of it. Like there's a lot going on. And I felt like 10 times out of 10, the people that were making music around me were able to find salvation, togetherness, purpose. Music made them part of something bigger than themselves and took them out of those hard moments. And I just felt like, man, this is so powerful. And so that was the start of my career. That was, over 10 years ago now. And I've continued to build in this space. And I feel so profoundly lucky that I get to continue my journey in trying to create accessibility to this thing that has meant so much to me and those around me. And I'm excited about building something that's so human-centric in a time where we're so obsessed with automation. It feels like an immense joy to be able to do something that's so human-centric, apply technology to something that's so human-centric.
Oh, so much of that resonates with me. Music has got me through my whole life, like literally. And you're right, it just has this amazing way of supporting us and connecting us and making us feel that togetherness. And honestly, like when you make music with other people, like it's just like, there's nothing better than it. And listening to music and appreciating that, it means so much to me. And I think making that accessible to people is really important, because not everyone gets that opportunity. I know, like in the UK in particular, over the last couple of decades, a lot of the funding that was going into schools and for young people to be able to give them these opportunities, to learn an instrument, they're not there anymore. And unless you have enough financial, resources, it's very difficult to provide that for your children. So, making it accessible to everyone, it's just really commendable, and I could feel your passion. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. So for people listening, you mentioned Biiah and how it is focused for workplaces. You mentioned the word productivity. I wonder what was the connection there. Then maybe you can explain a bit more about how that works.
So when I think about music, and I think about singing in particular, it denotes this feeling of, again, I'll just repeat the bigger than myself, right? And so much of the personalization around music right now, the curation is around calm, is around, chilling us out, listening to lo-fi beats, engaging with things that really calm us. But when I think about singing, like when I sing in the morning when I'm getting ready for work, I'm singing musical theater. I'm like, get me out of myself. Like remind me, it's like the replacement for coffee, right? Like caffeine. Exactly.
Get
when
fired
I think
up.
about the like really fun stuff that I do with the choirs that I sing in, it's big, it's loud, it's got in multiple parts. And so, I think when we first started, we started in the same place where everybody exists, which is, use music to soothe. But I felt like there was such a huge opportunity, especially in the workplace where we feel this lack of motivation. We're sitting at our desks all day long. Some of us who are remote or work, mainly from home, maybe a little bit hybridly, feel that disconnect from other people. And music, what it provided me through the pandemic, and now still where I work mostly remotely away from people, is it gives me that opportunity to feel like a human again and bring me back out of myself. And so the word productivity felt like the most appropriate word for what it is that we're actually trying to do. Of course, music will soothe, and of course, it provides us opportunity for calmness. But really, the people that the end users that we were speaking to all the time, the words that they were describing, how making music made them feel, and the value that they felt was this: take me out of myself, like connect me with others, come out here, right? Like come into this new place. And so I think that that's really what makes our platform unique, is we're really trying, there's so many incredible platforms that already exist to help soothe and calm and restore, and I encourage people to use those platforms as well. But what I think really is our bread and butter, and the thing that we do best at, and the thing that we're most encouraged by, is helping people not only meet other people in the workplace, create that sort of team cohesion, but also the elation that you feel when you get to sing loud, when you just get to, make music and revive yourself. And I think that when we look at the workplace in particular, there's so much impact that can be made there, because there are people who are being forced back into the workplace where they don't feel like that feels good to them. You're sat in a cubicle with 100 other people in the same space. That's stressful. There's so many elements to this new hybrid lifestyle that we live in, this new world post-COVID, that allowing people to have music that fuels them and re-energizes them, and when I'm having to write a really intense report or presentation, I either go and sing a little bit musical theater, write something really big and loud, or I listen to something, my old punk rock playlist that I used to play and that I used to like rock out to in high school, to help like me get into that new energy space. And that's what we're really trying to curate through our platform. So our app helps you find things, whether it be listening, sort of passive engagement, because we're sitting at our desks and cubicles surrounded by people. We can't always just like sing all day long, as much as that would bring me so much joy. I'm not sure like team leaders of companies would be very happy about their employees just singing all day long. But if you have an opportunity, if you work from home, or you have an opportunity in the car on the way to work, from work, that there are singing exercises and humming exercises and ways for you to engage with your voice as well. So we have this sort of active and passive engagement, so that we can help you find the music that really helps move you, motivate you, to really kind of support people through that like positive engagement space.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So it's really kind of tapping into people's energy, or using the music to tap into that energy. And I think, when I was kind of reflecting on it, singing is actually quite a vulnerable thing to do. So sharing your voice when, you're not quite sure, how people might react to it, having a platform like yours, I imagine, helps to build confidence and trust within teams as well. And then that kind of, again, I think you use that term, feeling like there's something bigger than yourself. You can contribute to something where the sum of the parts are, bigger than the whole. And that's actually quite beautiful, isn't it? When you think about, all the ways in which it can benefit teams to come together in that way. It's really beautiful. There are so many benefits, aren't there? I know when we had a chat before this, we were talking about singing and how beneficial it is for people. I would really love to reflect on that some more. I know we talked about some of the mental health benefits. There's obviously physiological benefits, because you're using all your lung capacity and your body and your energy and the vibrations. So there is a lot. So maybe you could talk us through what you kind of see as some of the main benefits, and what people feed back to you as to how it helps them.
I would say the benefits is definitely where we started, right? Team cohesion, this icebreaker effect that happens where people feel taken out of the workplace. If we look at a sports stadium, right, 100,000 people singing and chanting together, right? That's that same feeling, that 9 times out of 10 people, one of their main motivations for engaging with our ecosystem is being able to meet other people in the workplace where they otherwise wouldn't have cause to, over something shared. Aside from the fact that deeply breathing together, singing together, that there's research that shows that you link in heartbeat, like through that linking in breath in that song, it links your heartbeats. And so there is actually a physiological link that's happening when you sing with other people. When you sing on your own or with other people, of course, there's like mental health benefits and physiological benefits from serotonin increases in your body, stabilization of cortisol, from like supporting. There's research that shows that making music can slow down the progression of neurodegenerative diseases, that it helps to maintain elasticity in the brain, that through obviously using your breath and your lungs, it can help support diaphragm. It can help with breathing. There was a program that was started during COVID for long COVID that was centered around singing, that was based out of the ENO.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think when we look at all of the like chemical things that are happening when we sing, whether it be alone or with other people, it feels so profound and so obvious. Why wouldn't we all be making music all the time? Like the data, the research is there to show that it has all of these benefits, aside from the fact that it's an intrinsic part of the human experience, right? At some time in our lives, we all sing, we all make music, we all, whether it's with a parent or a caregiver or with a grandparent or a friend around the campfire or in class or church, if you go to church, or there's so many in the sports stadium, right? There are so many examples of the way that we use music. We listen to the radio in the car, even if we take away from singing and we just think about listening, so many people are playlisting their days, their lives. How are we not using this in the workplace in a way to make more happier and more productive teams? It just feels so obvious to me that if it can help everyone, why wouldn't we use it? People feeling good in the workplace is inherently going to make better employees, more retained employees, more engaged employees, right? Like it doesn't, why aren't we like, I don't understand. It feels so obvious to me, obviously. So,
Yeah, but there maybe are some barriers. So I know we spoke before about I told you the story of when we were younger in primary school and we did like group singing things. If there was any of the children whose voices didn't gel as well, they were called frogs and they were asked to mime. And I think unfortunately if people have had those kinds of experiences when they're younger, they'll have that limiting belief that they feel like, oh well, but because I don't have a good voice or a pleasant voice, then it's not
yeah.
it's not for me. So what kind of advice would you give to someone who maybe is feeling a bit like that and hasn't tapped into these benefits because that belief is holding them back?
First of all, I cannot tell you the number of stories similar to that I've been told. I mean, it is truly heartbreaking that children are being told to be quiet. And if everybody could send me a list of their music teachers or nuns or whoever it was that told them to stand in the back and mime, I'd be really happy to like take a caravan around the country and speak to all these people and tell them how truly detrimental that can be, even if it's just one time to a child. We're talking about people who like years, dozens of years, decades later are still not comfortable using their voices because that one time that they were told to be quiet. And so the level of detriment that can cause is really profound. Our singing voice is absolutely linked to our speaking voice and how we feel confident in the world around us. And so, if there are any parents or music teachers out there, like, please just we should be encouraging the next generation to use their voices and find confidence in their voices. For people who unfortunately have had that happen to them, I would say there are a couple of things. Obviously, just from a basic level, your voice is such a natural part of who you are, more than a name, right? A name is given to you. Your voice is part of who you are, in the same way that like the height that you're going to be is like predisposed, right? Like that it's just a genetic part of you. And so you should feel confident in the thing that is your own. It is such a specific like human tag of who you are, right? I hear my mom's voice and a certain feeling like comes over me, right? There's something that feels very profound about speaking to people that I've known for so long, right? Your voice is such a natural part of who you are. that I encourage everyone to like try to find ways to feel confident in it, whether it be your speaking or your singing voice. I think if you're just starting out, one of my favorite things to do is like, and there are lots of ways that this can look, but like being in the car and turning the radio like all the way up and just like shout, right? You're so taken care of because you're in this little shell all by yourself. Nobody can hear you. And just start to use your voice. I think just by the act of using, you become comfortable. And over time, the sound of your voice, right? We hear ourselves speaking all day long. The same thing will happen with your singing voice, right? If you're just singing and you're using your voice, it sort of stops needing to be one thing or another. And then I think the other thing that kind of rolls on past that is when somebody tells you to be quiet or that you shouldn't sing, using the word no can be really profound. And I think that, you know, I see it with, I had somebody tell me a story once where their child, like 2-3 years old, would tell them to stop singing to them because they thought they had a bad voice. And I was like, and they stopped singing like nighttime songs to that child. And I was like, first of all, where has that come from, right? Because like the idea of good isn't based on anything else than the things that we have around us, right? That's media telling us, that's the music industry telling us what modern good singing sounds like. But if we think about singers like Bob Dylan, right? Like who maybe on a traditional scale wouldn't have been considered a good singer, but how profoundly moved an entire generation is by the stories that he's telling through his voice. And so what does good mean? It doesn't mean anything. If we look at, you know, I've studied music from 500 years ago to last year, and the vocal quality required for each of those things is very, very different. You know, me being trained in sort of early traditional choral music requires a very different voice than somebody who's singing R&B or soul or jazz. And when I was at Berklee for my undergraduate degree, and I had all these incredible singers who were able to get up on stage and sing at these jazz clubs, and I couldn't do that. I felt like a bad singer where I had been considered a good singer so much of my life. And that's just context, right? It's who you're surrounding yourself with. It's the genres that you're listening to. You're comparing yourself to something. You are being compared to something. And so maybe it's just, you know, this is why I love folk music so much. Like we think about traditional Irish songs, pub songs, Celtic music, and people are standing in a pub and you have a pint in your hand and you're just like, sing it like it doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth, and then everybody rises up like around you and everyone's singing together in song. And I think about those moments and I'm like, did it matter what people sounded like on any level? And so no. I think that it like this good, you should only sing if you sound good is like, I think one of the things that's creating sort of a rot in the core of the music industry. And I hope that we can, and society, I hope that we can move past as we start to think more about well-being and the holistic human and who we are as unique, independent people in the world around us. I hope that we can start to think about people's voices as, sure, maybe they don't sound good in whatever the thing that vision that you've created in your mind that this thing should sound like, which is usually based off of how you've heard it sung before. And actually just thinking about what story is being told. What's the purpose of this exercise? Why are kids in school being told not to sing? What is the purpose of this exercise? Like,
I don't know, because they should be allowed to explore. They should be allowed to have fun and be creative and just see what comes out, and that's 100%. Where the magic happens. So I don't know, maybe it happens less than when I was younger, but I know that is, you know, quite a significant barrier for people, and it's a shame, isn't it? Because we all have stories to tell, and telling those stories, you know, through the medium of music is so powerful.
Yeah.
So
I think amazing. Often words convolute our emotions. Yeah. And so music is a profound way for us to express ourselves. And so if anybody is listening out there and you don't have confidence in your singing voice, I encourage you to just find your favorite music that you love to sing, that moves you, and maybe at first you put it on loud enough where you can't hear your voice, and slowly over time you turn the music down so you become comfortable hearing the sound of your voice, using your voice. That comfort will come with use. And so the best advice I can always give is just use it. And if you feel uncomfortable using it in front of other people, you don't have to give that gift to somebody else. You can just share it with yourself. But you deserve to have access to this thing that has so much healing that comes along with it.
Definitely, definitely, yeah. So you touched upon some of the physiological benefits, and you cited the work that was done with long COVID survivors and kind of helping with like their recovery. I wonder, it'd be so super cool if you could maybe give some examples of, so if someone is maybe thinking about their breathing technique and how they might want to improve that, what is there exercises in the app that
Yeah, of
help
course.
people with
Absolutely. We also have, we've published a bunch of literary reviews of research studies that already exist on the benefits, mental, physical, and social benefits of singing on our website. And so if you go to biiah.com, you can read about them there. I also encourage people to, yes, we do have exercises like that through our app, but if you are struggling with long COVID, the ENO have lots of free exercises that exist on their platform, on their YouTube page. And also, if there are specific examples, I always encourage people to reach out, because we have a lot of knowledge that we are trying to structure in a way that we can publish lots of it. But it's likely that I might have solutions for you as well. Obviously, we focus on people within the workplace, and people exist outside of the workplace as like well-rounded humans. And so I'm here to also support. So if anybody wants help finding their thing of how they can start their singing journey, please do reach out.
Yeah, sharing all that really good research and knowledge. We kind of do similar in our business as well, and that it's so beneficial to be able to signpost people to other things as well. So that's ace that you're doing that too. One of the other things that I was reflecting on after we'd had our initial discussion was whether there's also a kind of gender barrier when it comes to singing. So I know, like from my experience, like when I was in the choir at university, it was majority female. There were very few males in our choir. And well, to be fair, that was 20 years ago as well. Maybe things are slightly better, but within the work that you do and kind of your past experience, have you seen that as well, that maybe men aren't getting as much benefit as they could do because they kind of see it as, oh, that's for women, that's
Absolutely.
not for me?
And I think that there are probably two causes, as we all still exist in this like very intense gender binary on a global basis of like what's expected of women and what's expected of men, and how we are allowed to be vulnerable versus not. You mentioned on earlier in this podcast about how our voice can be quite a vulnerable thing. And obviously that is something that we see, and a variety people have different levels of comfort using their voice. I think, you know, in society itself, we are quite used to sharing stories, talking with each other, using our voices all day long. And so I think that that inherently like contributes to that open-mindedness, aside from the fact that I think that just inherently by saying, I'm trying to be like as technically correct as I can, but there are certain invisible things that we are taught from a very early age, like the implicit bias around gender that exists specifically in your voice, but in other things.
Yeah.
Right. When we look at STEM, there's so much work being done to try to like level the gender playing field because, women in science or anyone who's not a man in the sciences is encouraged to like take other more like humanities focused courses and things like that. That's implicit bias. That's language that's being used from when we're little kids. And so I'm sure if we did a study on when we just tracked somebody's every single day, all day long, that perhaps women are encouraged to use their voices in that sort of musical way more. I'm not sure, but I definitely do see in a lot of our groups, a majority women over men for sure. I mean, we have a couple of really great, profound men in our groups and in our community that feel very confident in using their voices, whether having come from a trained background or not. And so I don't think it's prohibitive at all. I don't think gender matters really in this, especially in the spaces that we're trying to create, which is just use your voice because it's good for you and connects you with others.
No, it shouldn't.
But there's a lot of work on the back end that we're trying to do around how do we welcome people into the ecosystem? How do we make people feel included? How can we encourage more men into this space because it provides so much healing? And obviously there is some sort of implicit barrier that exists. I think it's a difficult one to solve, but we definitely do see it. And so working all the time to try to find new ways to break down those barriers.
Yeah, that's great. That's so good. It was making me also think about one of the other myths, which is, but I can't read music. I'm not musical, or sometimes people feel like they don't have rhythm as well. So they might feel like, well, that's not for me because I can't read music. I mean, to be fair, I can read music. I can't properly sight read music. You have to give me a good amount of time to look at it to figure out where, how all the notes go together. But I guess, I was actually going to share. So I went to a workshop, I think it was probably about a year ago, and it was a African singing workshop. And the guy that led the session, he had us singing in a whole nother language. We split up into 4 different parts. Nothing was written down. Some of the words he did write down phonetically, just to help us to get it to go in our heads as to how to pronounce all the sounds. But I was blown away that this, and there was probably about 25 people there, something like that, split into the 4 different harmonies. And by the end of the day, honestly, I had goosebumps because I was just like, I can't believe that we've all managed to do this and not one note was written down. It was just phenomenal. And I was like, oh, wow, this just shows what's possible. And yeah, I wish I could do more.
Well,
of that
what
kind of
is
thing.
the purpose of reading music?
That is a very good
question. It's a means to an end, right? I mean, really, I am so, if any of my friends are listening to this podcast, I know that they're going to be laughing because one of my soapboxes that I stand on quite regularly, if you tip me over, which you've just done, I will just go fall deep down the rabbit hole, which is I actually wrote my dissertation at the end of my master's program on notation and the 14th century motet in particular, but looking at where notation started and why we used it. And there's something quite profound about written music, right? It enables composers, or originally it enabled composers who didn't speak the same language across the continent to be able to send music to each other, right? Which really helped to encourage and evolve music. When you listen and hear music from the 15th century, 16th, 17th, 18th, you can hear it expanding all the time. And of course, that the sheet music, being able to composition, writing it down, enabled that, a lot of it. I'm sure the printing press, also really helps, right? Being able to send music around to different people for them to read and then sing was more profound than just learning things by rote only, because the oral tradition, how many songs can we keep in our heads? 200? 300? I'm not sure. It's quite limiting. And so for people who are singing all the time, like monks, the written tradition enabled them to be able to recall more music, have a starting place of more music. It wasn't just based on what they had heard and learned from people before them. They didn't have to spend years and years and years and years and years learning by memory, but they could just read it. It was there like a Post-it note. I've written on a Post-it note, remember, this is how this song starts. Okay, let's go. And now we contribute so much of continuity of music, in classical music in particular, and when we're learning music in school, to reading music. And I'm like, but why? What is the purpose of making music? It's to connect us with other people. It's to be moved. It's to be emotionally moved. It's to be taken on a journey, to be told a story, to be to connect to other things around us, for us to greater understand other things happening around us, right? Like there are so many examples of music being a vehicle for other, like sheet music doesn't come into it, but somehow we've gotten confused along the way and we think it's the most important thing. Now, I do think for professional musicians, being able to read music is profound because you get to do much more music. Absolutely. But I don't think it's the end all. And this idea that, you know, in the choral industry, we see it a lot, that people who are very, very successful in the industry, especially in the UK, are people who can read music. And it's because, of course, you can just go in, you don't need very much rehearsal, you can just sing the music and there you go. And I just think that we've lost the mark a little bit on what the purpose is. I'm not saying that reading music isn't important. I think for professional musicians, for sure, it's important. And how we get people to the professional level, teaching them how to read music, really important. But actually, when I started this business, my music advisory board can confirm from the very beginning, I was like, I don't want this to be, no part of this will be about reading music. Everything is going to be about reading, about learning music by rote. And all of our programs are about learning music by rote, about intrinsically engaging yourself with music, because I've just found that it's such a huge barrier to so many people. People think that they shouldn't sing in a community choir because they can't read music. And that actually, like, is that really necessary on any level for the average day-to-day person who just wants to, like, how do we learn great folk music? Not by reading music, by hearing it and engaging with it and then putting our own story spin to it. And
and joining in, once we feel like, okay, I've got the chorus down now.
Exactly.
Let's
so
go.
I think that there are great programs that exist to teach people to read music, but I'm really excited about programs that are blossoming around using music in other ways, by learning it by rote, by engaging with it through listening, through utilizing your voice. I mean, circle singing, as an example, has become really, really profoundly popular in the last year. Which is like the idea that you are becoming comfortable with improvisation. So you just get together. Imagine getting together with 20 people, not having any music. You're not singing any song in particular, and just all improvising. So, like, next level comfortable with your voice that you're just making sounds, whatever comes out. And that's the music that's created. So there's this movement that's happening around there, around that idea now, which I really love. This idea of like becoming so comfortable with your voice that you could just like let it rip. And with another, oh yeah,
I've not heard of
it's
that.
growing in popularity. So I think that that's going to help level the playing field a little bit when we look at the musicians like Bobby McFerrin. When we look at Bobby on stage, the reason why he's profoundly famous is because he was able to not only use his voice in these crazy, like next level ways, but had such a comfort in making music as it came out, in his voice and how he sounded and how it told a story and engaged with others. We see Jacob Collier doing a lot of the same thing, encouraging huge audiences to sing in harmony, not needing any background in music, nothing being prohibitive other than buying the ticket and being there, right? Like anybody who's here, you can sing and you should engage. And so I do feel like the playing field might be leveling in this idea of like needing to be able to read music to make it. I think we're finally starting to break those barriers down.
Oh, that's so cool. I just love that that's been a part of, really fundamental, important part of how you've built Biiah. And that right from the start, you were like, no, we need to make sure that this is accessible and completely remove that barrier from people. So that is so awesome. Super, super cool. Yeah, so that's super amazing. We've discussed loads of benefits. One of the reasons why I was actually really keen to have you on, so this will go live in December. And December is one of my favorite times of year because we get carol singing, and I do love carol singing. I've got some favorite ones. Our village, they normally do a little switch on with the Christmas tree lights, and then they'll do a little carol singing session. The young people play recorders and things like that as well. It's super cute. To get all the community involved. So I love Christmas. So it would be nice to have a wee chat about, if people are thinking about giving singing a try over Christmas. Have you got any advice on, maybe songs to have a go at, or different activities that they
Well,
could
I mean,
try?
there are so many great Christmas songs, but also like non-religious winter songs. Like when we think about like Frosty the Snowman and things like that. There are so many albums on Spotify, Amazon Music that you can listen to and sing along to, songs that you'll like recall from your childhood. And so I encourage people to like, obviously I've already started down the deep rabbit hole of my holiday playlisting. And so I think just like obviously starting at home and playing music from home and just like singing along to the music at home is always an amazing place to start. I mean, what I love about this time of year is how many opportunities there are to like go to carol services, or like if you're Christian, I think that there's a lot of opportunity around like carol services, carol singing around the country, participating in carol singing, but also like paying like seeing carol singing. And I think that allowing yourself to be moved by the Christmas spirit is obviously a really profound place to start. There's so much great music this time of year that like you could never get bored of it. I certainly haven't, and I am deep down the rabbit hole, 30 plus years in.
Yeah, it's gonna
So
be awesome. The kids have got concerts, and I've just ordered. So my daughter has been learning the keyboard, so I've ordered her a Christmas keyboard book.
fun.
So yeah, we're going to get right into that, and then we're actually also organising a tech showcase at our tech hub in Aberdeen, and so because it's the first week in December, we're going to have Friday as like our Christmas extravaganza. So I've decided to call it Tech the Halls. And I've been working on like changing the words
I love it.
basically for Tech the Halls, and I'm like, am I brave enough
Yes.
to record that
Yes.
and put it out?
Amazing.
So now that I've said this, I'm
Yes.
gonna have to do it, aren't I?
100%.
So yeah, I've been having lots
good.
of creative fun. Thinking about how I can put a tech twist on Tech the Halls.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I love Christmas. Yeah, it's such as for music, it is a
What
really
I would
special
also
time.
say is we have
Yeah.
a big newsletter that goes out monthly of opportunities for you to sing in your local area, both virtually in your local virtual area and also locally. We have gigs that are happening all over the UK and we basically say whether we think that you need expert level, like do you need to sight read for this, or could you just rock up and just learn music having no experience whatsoever. And so if you're looking for places to sing in your local
Oh,
area,
nice.
you can sign up to our newsletter on our website, and we send that out monthly. So not just for the festive season, but any time of year, we are kind of directing people to opportunities to sing around. So we're here to kind of help find places for you to sing if you want.
Cool. We can pop the link to
Great.
that in the notes as well, so that people have got it. That's a great suggestion. Maybe on that train of thought, is there any other initiatives or activities that you've got coming up that you'd
Yeah, I
like to
mean, if
share?
anybody who's listening works at a company that does team away days, does workshops, is more on the innovative side, like we do both. We have in-person workshopping that we do all the time. We come into businesses, we do professional development around music, we do team bonding workshops through music, we set up workplace choirs. And so if there's anything, if any of those things feel like even vaguely interesting to you, even if you're not the person to set it up, I'm always really happy to hear from people who want to add music into their work days. And so here to support on that side. So if you go to our website, or I'm happy obviously to include my email, as rogue as that is, to include my email as part of this send out. And so anybody can write to me anytime, expressing their interest. Really happy to work with you and your workplace to try to set up some sort of music that happens internally.
That is a great offer. So yes, if anyone's listening, do take Xann up, because it will just make your workplace more cohesive, improve everyone's well-being. There's so, as we said, there are so many benefits. Awesome. So one of the big things that I've been working on in my business is creating kind spaces. And the podcast is kind of part of that journey. And as I've been exploring that concept and kind of what it means, I've been asking my guests to share a bit about what it means to them. So, how do you look after your well-being, and what are the kind of strategies that you turn to if you are feeling a little bit out of balance? And I think it's really insightful, especially if you're already working in a well-being area, and some of the insights that I've had from people, I've been like, oh my gosh, I never knew that that was a thing. Like the last interview I did, I got introduced to a whole new well-being concept that I'd never really heard of before. So I'm always really intrigued to see what kinds of things people do to stay well, and what really looks after them.
I'm really intense when it comes to looking after my well-being, probably because I am a work masochist and I just work way too hard, way too long most days. And so I actually track my well-being in this giant 75-row spreadsheet.
Oh wow, I love a spreadsheet, but that's intense.
Where I mark down the things that I feel like have positively contributed or negatively contributed, including, I track things like my heart rate, my sleep, my hours. And so the first and primary thing that I try to do is the most basic. I try to eat well regularly throughout the day. So I make sure that my glucose levels are normalized, that I have the fuel that I need to get through my day. Hydrating is obviously an important thing, and then getting a sufficient number of hours. I know it sounds so simple, but like I need 8 hours of sleep, especially in the change of seasons. And so if I've gotten, let's say 6 hours, I know
it's got real dark
you're suddenly
here.
in the dark. You did disappear last week on our call. So hopefully you don't disappear entirely before the end of this. But I really make sure to, like, if I've gotten 6 hours of sleep and I need a little bit of a sleep boost, I'll cancel something that I have in the evening so that I can go to sleep earlier and have a longer wind down period, because I just think sleep is that important. I really noticed the difference. I mean, now that I'm in like my mid 30s, like I've really noticed a sharp difference in if I've gotten 6 versus 8 hours of sleep in my cognitive abilities. So that's like primary thing. I do other things, like I try to go out for walks. So if I'm feeling really, really anxious, like if right now and I'm doing something and we're on a work call and I get off the call and I can feel that sort of like, I'll take a step up and maybe walk around the block or go and get some fresh air and just try to reset. I have a bunch of music playlists that obviously I use throughout the whole day. I think being a founder, you are just knocked on your butt like all day, every day. People are just, it is really a tough roller coaster.
We've spoken about this, that it takes a very special kind of person.
Yeah,
to be
exactly. And so I have so much music that I have a whole set of playlists and albums that I have on rotation that help me, based on how I'm feeling and how I want to feel, help switch me into that energy. And so obviously, like I've used a lot of, because I do that mechanism for myself all day long, we're using that mechanism to build into our ecosystem so that we can help people do the same thing, utilize music to kind of flip us into the positive, make us feel however we want to feel, whether that's like confident, refreshed, energetic, positive. I'm very solution oriented. And so if I'm feeling really, really down and mopey or self-deprecating, I'll put on a playlist that makes me feel confident about myself again and reminds me of that. I do therapy. I work with my therapist every week on my mental health, because this roller coaster of being a founder, and I just think that it's such an important support mechanism for me, just being able to like sometimes word vomit the stuff that's happened that week just to like make sense of it. I do acupuncture when necessary. I love Thai massage. Like, obviously those things can be really prohibitive, but like if I feel like my health is really taking a turn, or I've gotten 3-5 days of really bad sleep, those things really help push me back into the good zone. Taking a full day off if I'm feeling really bad, so actually taking a Sunday and just resetting, having long dinners with friends, and just like reminding myself that I'm a human being going to see live music. I mean, there's so much singing in choir. I mean, for me, that can be both a stressful experience depending on the environment and also like really profoundly beneficial. And so I try to pick and choose. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've spent a lot of time curating a really long list of things that make me feel good. And I track how I'm honest with myself about how I'm feeling. Like in the summertime, sometimes just going and sitting in the sun for 10 minutes and just getting that natural vitamin D, I like resets my entire day. And so I try to create this long list of things that help me reset at the end of a long work day, turning the lights down and putting on some Bach onto the record player and reading my book about British churches. Oh, such a good emotional reset for me. Listening to Billie Holiday, like over a glass of wine, chatting to one of my friends or my partner. We have to learn what it is that makes us feel good and fills our cups. And it's not going to be the same one size fits all for every single day and every single thing that you're feeling. Yeah. And so having that wide, I think I did a podcast about well-being about a year ago. I think I called it a bucket. Like I have this well-being bucket that I can pull from all the time. So if I'm
I sometimes call it a toolkit. So it sounds like you've got lots of things.
And I think I think we can get so many ideas from the outside world, but really like figuring out for us, like sometimes singing really does it for me. And sometimes I don't want to be around other people. And so that can actually be a detriment. Right. And so I think I'm happy that we're moving into a space in the world where people are encouraged to find the things that make them feel good. Right on time.
Oh,
right on time. We knew it would happen right about now.
Oh, there she is. Oh, no, that's cool. I think, there's been an amazing discussion. Thank you so much for all of your time. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Oh, yeah. Just as I started this podcast with me basically saying that I think singing is the best thing in the whole world. Obviously, I'm a bit biased. But yeah, it's just been great to have you share, a bit more about some of the benefits, and hopefully we've dispelled some of the myths and made people feel a little bit more confident about using their voices, because I know it's not easy, because like I said before, it's quite a vulnerable thing to do, to share your voice with other people, and it's something that I'm trying to work on every day. Tech the halls will be coming.
So amazing. I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, that'll be so good. I know. Do you know what? I might make it a family thing and have everyone.
Amazing.
Oh, awesome. So before we say goodbye to everyone, I need to make sure that people know where to find you. So have you got a social media handle as well? So we mentioned the website and how people can get in touch by email.
Biiah, Biiah. I would say because we're very business focused, LinkedIn is always a really great place to come. Our website is chock full of resources and things like that. But also please reach out if there's anything that I can do to help you on your journey, whether it's your own journey or your company's journey, to powering better well-being and productivity through music. I'm here to support whatever that looks like. And so, I mean, we have all the other traditional social channels, but I find that email, our website, and LinkedIn are really the best places to find us.
The main ones, yeah. Awesome. Oh no, that's so great. Now, in case I've missed anything, let me know, because my brain sometimes, and this is Friday, so I've had a long
not
week.
at all. I mean, Caroline, this has been so great. I think what you're building here with Kind Space is important, encouraging people to think about their own kind spaces, the kind spaces that maybe they help support for those around them. As we come out of COVID back into this weird hybrid world, thinking about that is something that we should all be doing, and thinking about how we can support ourselves, our own well-being, and uniquely in what we think helps fuel our positive mental state and physical state. And so I think it's so great that you are showing the world how diverse the options are for supporting your own unique self. And I'm so honored, especially given the holiday festive spirit, to be able to come onto your podcast and talk about singing and how good it makes people feel, and to encourage people to find space to build confidence in their own voices. It's so important.
Oh, thank you, Xann. That's some really nice last reflections. Oh, thank you, thank you. So, yes, we will see everyone in the new year.
Great. Happy New Year, everyone.
Catch up soon. Thank you. Xann's words are an inspiration to nurture our voices and embrace the healing power of music. Her passion for making singing accessible shines through. Singing and using your voice can be a profound act of courage. There is certainly a vulnerability to it. But I encourage you to use your voice more, as I know it will bring you and others tremendous joy. Carry this spirit and gift of song into your own life and share it with those around you. As the podcast series continues, I encourage you to get in touch and share your stories and tips. I'd love to hear from you. Pop me an email at caroline@tltechsmart.com or message on social media @createyourkindspace.